Hello and welcome to Crane Talk, a podcast that covers all things cranes, rigging, and heavy iron. My name is Isaac Smith, and I'm joined beside three experts in the industry, Ron Thompson, Gene Greiner, and we have a special guest.
That's right. We've got Chad Skogsberg with us today. He's founder and owner of one of our crane and rigging customers, Ginger Cranes. So we're really glad to have you here, Chad. Thanks for coming all the way over and sharing with us a little bit about your operations. So glad to have you. Yeah, so I guess we can go ahead and jump on in with Ginger. So how long has Ginger been around? What's the time period that you guys got started, and how did you kind of end up in the business? Because I think your prior life was not crane and rigging at all.
Yeah, completely different. Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be around some good company. So hanging out. My start in, of course, I come from like retail. When I say retail, I'm talking old school retail. So, before the almighty internet, all that started, that's where I got all of my business acumen from, right? So, and then, had a good run there, made it through the Great Recession, if you will. We all remember that. And then took a break for a while. And then this guy, now coming from the retail background, right? You're looking for salespeople all the time. And this guy it's like a Wednesday afternoon. I'm trading the markets. It's just like I say, a random day. And all of a sudden I get the knock on the door from a guy. He answers the door, tall, skinny Ginger. And he says, "Hey man, you look like you need some dirt." And
wait, this is at your house?
Yeah. I'm at the house. We'd built the facility out back from my wife's company, and the dirt guy and the general contractor, I don't know if I told you the story or not before, but they had a falling out. And so we needed dirt. He was like, "I didn't know if those were supposed to be loading docks or, all the grade dirt was like a 5 or 6 foot drop into nothingness." So I told him, I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Yep." And it was just such a shock to me. Now, mind you, I didn't know this guy from Adam, right? But when you come from the background that I come from, and then somebody shows up on your doorstep, literally a door-to-door salesman for some dirt, I was immediately impressed, right? So I was like, man, this awesome. Yes, I need dirt, and I'll take every ounce of it you can get. And that's kind of how the thing got started. Well, it turns out he was a crane operator in the oil field at the time. So some time passed. We ended up becoming buddies. He started telling me about the crane business, which for me, the first commercial property I bought way back, needed a unit on the roof.
AC units.
Yeah. And believe it or not, it took 2 weeks nearly to get the crane there. And I thought, man, that's what I need to do. I need to look into that. And I did. But, I told people, yeah, right. Oops. So, but I did. I spent a little time, did a little research. And, it's not like being a plumber or electrician or any of the, the smaller skilled trades. You just don't buy a Chevy pickup at the dealership and go to work, right? So there was an immediate no. Started my career. Everything went great. And leads up to this moment where I meet this guy. He had a kid, I think, eager to get back, spend more time with the family, that whole thing. And I just over a couple of beers, I said, "Hey man, this crane thing, I'd always wanted to do it." Told him the story, said, "If you wanted to give it a shot, I think we could really kill it." Two guys that just
have the same color hair.
Yeah, and we're ginger, right? So that's how it kind of got started. Is he started teaching me kind of the way the crane business worked. And I saw a little bit of an avenue. Now, granted, back then I was trading the markets and, so I was always just news, data heavy. And the Fed came out and said, "Hey, we're going to be at nearly 0% for the foreseeable future," which, that translates to an election cycle, right? So, I told him, I was like, "Hey, we do this now. We've got a solid 4 years to get some steam rolling before things could potentially take a shift." And here we are. It's 4.5 years in. We started officially, operating the business January 1 of 20. So,
Yeah. So you guys are here local.
Yep.
And so I noticed some things around town, Ginger Cranes, and their logo is kind of a big Scotsman with glasses and a big red beard. And
That's
I was
right. Scotty.
I have got to get to know who these people are.
Well,
This is good stuff.
This is my question. How many crane owners are from Elk Point, South Dakota?
Yeah. How many?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It ain't plural.
I mean,
Yeah.
I bet this guy went to Ponca State Park quite a bit. It's there. And doing research on Elk Point, they've got a restaurant there called Spink Cafe. And Spink Cafe is well known. And how Spink Cafe got to Elk Point, that the original Spink burned down.
And this is not that long ago.
Yeah, burned down 4 or 5 years ago in Spink, South Dakota. And so they traveled to Elk Point and says, let's take over this old American Legion bank and make it a restaurant. And now you can go to TripAdvisor, what to do in Elk Point. You got to go to Spink's.
I'm impressed. I am impressed. Which is also Elk Point's the county seat. Watch out. Yep.
And Gene,
So you can be arrested, arraigned, and tried. Boom. And maybe even have it catered from Spinks. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
but you drive 2 hours and you're in Mitchell. And Mitchell's known for Cabela's.
Oh, and don't forget the Corn Palace there, eh?
The Corn Palace.
Yeah.
The Corn Palace.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
don't let them catch you picking off some corn off of that. Woo! They'll throw you in the pokey real quick.
So, down here in Texas, we're Joe Bob Johnsons or Billy Dons. But then we hear Skogsberg. I'm going, Skogsberg in Texas. Wow, how did Skogsberg get to Texas? Ours is all 4 names. And so I researched that, and it comes from the Viking days in Sweden.
Yeah. The motherland, yeah.
And so Chad is not that far removed from shipbuilding the Viking ships. That's crazy.
Which in my days of working out, I probably would have fit the part a little bit. But yeah. Now I'm that old creepy man sitting over there looking at them while they're building ships. See?
Well, that's an interesting story. And when Gene picked up the account, Ginger Cranes, I didn't connect the hair coloring. And then I saw Steve Watson and I saw Chad, and I go, yeah, it makes all kinds of sense. You've got to have a hair coloring before they will hire you.
Yeah.
So
That would be fun to implement, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
It's magical.
I'm impressed with the little bit of homework you did on Old Elk Point.
Chad, when we bring guests in live or in person, you can't just sit back and talk about this and that and the other. You got to have a little research and background on the guest.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
I thought it was pretty cool, man.
Yeah, Elk Point. Now, when I graduated high school, and I was going to play basketball and, Bright Lights, Big City, the girl I was dating at the time, which now consequently is my ex-wife, that's how I got here.
Oh, I see.
Is I was going to stay and play basketball at the University of South Dakota. She had, her scholarships were there. Her parents had moved with General Motors down here. General Motors doing a bunch of downsizing back through the 90s. So they were closing factories that evidently weren't, profitable, whatever. And they gave them different areas of the country they could move, which they picked Wichita Falls, which had a really nice facility just outside of town between Wichita Falls and Burke Burnett. So when we were sophomores, about 6 months after we were dating, is when we got the news, and we were hot and heavy, which consequently, Rachel is her name. She was like all of 6 chicks in town that we weren't related to, right? So I have a sizable family, and, the Hansons, EN and ON, they're not related, but man, if you're on the ON, which we are, man, I mean, you got to be careful. So anyway, she had moved down here for the summer just to spend with her parents after we graduated high school. Plan was her to come back. We were going to go to school. Everything was going to be hunky dory. She calls me up, says her dad's going to pay for college because she's going to go to Midwestern State there in Wichita Falls.
Okay.
Which is a great campus, great school. And she was like, I know you're not going to give up basketball for me and whatever. I guess we're going to break up. This is like 11 o'clock at night. Okay. So, and we have never been apart since we started dating. I'm not kidding. If it was a weekend, you'd have to be like, show me proof that we were not together. So 29 days apart, this kid is as lovesick as you can get, right? So I go in, wake up my mom. I grab $150.
American.
Yeah, US dollars. And I jump in my 1979 Thunderbird.
Beautiful.
Oh, dude. Which just, I wish I had that car today. It's such a cruiser, you know? And I drive all night. No sleep, drive the whole night. I figured, I'm going to wake her up. We're going to see each other, lovey-dovey. Everybody's in love again. And, you know, plans back in place, right? I didn't go home for a year and a half. I got here, woke her up out of bed, 9-something in the morning. I wake her up. She's like, oh, what? And yeah, it was all lovey-dovey, hunky-dory. We were just, but yeah, I was officially
let me interject. You know, I'm not a creeper, but I did see pictures of Chad's wife and family, beautiful family. But the wife is a beauty queen. So I'm thinking, did Chad outkick his coverage?
There's no doubt about it. I tell everybody all the time outpunting my coverage. I don't know.
Oh, she's a beautiful lady. I've never met her. I just saw the pictures.
Well, it kind of works out pretty well. She is the queen of okey doke. If you guys ever get around her, watch it. She'll be like, oh, guys, yeah, come over and we'll do this and we'll do that. And you guys are going to be like, yeah, let's go to Chad's. And then you get over there. oh, hey, you guys, big, strong men. Oh, hey, can you move all this crap out of the attic? And you can't say no to that, right? So you're just like, oh my God, let me get dirty. Here we go. Chad, you're a jerk.
Can you come over and move 8 hours of furniture and I'll give you a 6-pack of beer?
Yeah.
I mean, we got that all the time when we were in college. I go, 6-pack of beer for 8 hours of moving pianos?
So my freshman year of college, I brought a trailer back that my family had to move myself. And then there were some girls, some co-eds that were like, oh, you have a trailer? Can you help me move? And I'm like, yeah, of course. You know, that's great. And I used it, you know. But then after a year or two of this, I decided nobody needs to know that I have a trailer. So I got to keep that under wraps. So I get it. That's funny.
Well, that's pretty cool. I just wanted to kind of know how you got into this area, how you got connected to Ginger Crane. I think Ginger is growing. Tell me a little bit about this market here. Are you guys primarily North Texas, or will you travel?
So I tell people all the time, have cranes will travel, right? So, but we go anywhere that it makes sense for the customer. Which, you know, we're just about through kind of our first phase of the plan. You know, now that we've got process and procedure a little bit more dialed in. You know, we're not your average crane company. You know, we do things differently in across pretty much across the board. You know what I mean? All the way down to like literally how we service the customer. We touch a lot of markets, you know, regionally. We go to Austin, Oklahoma City. I mean, we've been in, you know, Tulsa, or I guess Owasso, which is a little further north of that. You know, we've been to Louisiana several times, Arkansas. You know, it just has to make sense for the customer and the project that we're doing, right? So, you know, the last thing we want is the customer having an oops and it not being profitable for them. And, you know, that stuff kind of flows downhill. So, but I mean, the plan is definitely to go to other markets that are underserved, you know, and that doesn't mean that they don't have options for crane vendors, but are those vendors doing a good job? You know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to. So it takes a little bit of time, you know. When Stephen and I got together, and I couldn't have a better business partner for this industry because of how he operates. He's an excellent operator, right?
Yeah.
And I am terrible. I am the world's worst. I'm very, very good at growing and scaling a business, but when it comes to dealing with the everyday nuances of running any business, let alone the crane business, I just don't have the tolerance for it, especially like I used to. You know, just like anybody that ages, there are certain things that you do well with, and the things that you don't do well with, you do exceptionally bad at as you get older.
Well,
It's
Steven's
worse and
dad,
worse.
Dennis, he was an operator for his whole career
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
They're kind of known around North Texas.
Yeah.
Like Watson dad and Watson son.
So-
Really high caliber operators.
Chad, you started January 1st, 2020. There was something going around then called COVID.
Yeah. Really good timing.
Really good timing. So now we're 4 years into it. Is that 4 years? Are you on target with your projections when you started this company January 1st? Who knows, right? You got a plan. Is that 4 years being executed right now?
So we definitely outpaced all that, right? Our original plan was to have 5 cranes in 7 years bought and paid for, right? So, which, not knowing the industry, this is the first time that I've ever gotten into a business or started a business, especially from the ground up, with like being in retail, being in, even other service-based businesses. A lot of that stuff, there's a roadmap already planned out. Well, the crane business is not that way. Yeah, I mean, the sales procedure is somewhat the same across the board, but outside of that, there's a bunch of question marks, right? All the way down and specifically to what you guys do, the insurance side. I mean, the insurance and compliance as a whole, that's a behemoth that if you want to do any real work, that's a mountain you got to climb, right? So projections wise, we blew that out of the water, right? And a lot of that has to do with Steven just having he's worked in a lot of different sectors within the crane industry. So the familiarity, he just knew exactly what to do and when, you know what I mean? So a lot of that stuff was easy for me as a businessman to support, right? And just kind of feed the beast, and all the way down to knowing the right talent, to acquire and which ones to stay away from. And, it's kind of like a chick. You don't really know until you're with her, right? You know what I mean? So, you just have to try them on and try them out.
I've been with my chick 38 years. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, right? It's so there's a lot of things that come at us every day, which is kind of the fun part too, not in the moment, right? You're like, Jesus, I got to deal with this again. But once you get past it, and it's kind of another little notch on the belt of things that you've worked through, especially if it's something you're working through for the first time. So projections wise, we have way outblown that forecast, which we've done pretty much in every business that we've started, which I'm very blessed for that. But this one is different. The crane business is different.
Tell us a little bit why that's a different animal.
A lot of service-based businesses, you're selling something, right? You're selling a service with some sort of attachment to it, right? Some level of attachment. In the crane business, you're not. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're selling a service. Hey, we need to get that from there up over there or around there, whatever, right? But you're essentially just selling time, right? And the cranes and the guys are the vehicles in which you do that. You know what I mean? So when you have to manage those independently, it's a challenge, right? And you don't have to do that. Like if you're washing windows, you know what I mean? It's, did they show up? Did they do a good job? Call us when you need us again, right? The crane business is different. You know what I mean? You got a level of safety, that has to be, brought in. There's a whole different gamut of moving parts that allows you to or not to be able to do the job. You know what I mean? And I may be getting a little off course here, but in any business I've ever been in, you're providing a product or a service and you simply have to deliver it. Well, the crane business, because of literally the moving parts, you can be trying to deliver just the crane on site and just get, the dumb stuff, a blown tire, all the things that mechanically can go wrong, or somebody doesn't show up, to work, or, all the things that every company is to deal with, right? But on the macro, you also have all these other people in line, different, especially if you're working on a sizable project, you have all these trades that have to move, get to a certain price or a certain part of their project or their scope in order for you to come do yours. And I mean, every day I tell people all the time, I say cranes are ordered two different ways. It's either like nice and orderly and everything. Okay, we'll see you Tuesday, 10 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever. Or, we need a crane. And it's the we need a crane happen more often than the planned out. And those are the ones that just, can smack you in the face. And, there are no home runs. If anybody who's listening, there are no home runs in the crane business. It is a steady, just grind.
So what I hear too, Chad, not from you, but I do hear from other clients, is I just want to get back to the crane business. All this other stuff that comes with it, and I think the key is personnel. Hiring good operators, good orders, good mechanics, good CDL drivers. You hire quality personnel, but I hear a lot of that feedback is that, gosh, if I could just get back to running a crane company.
Instead of all the ancillary. Yeah, baloney. And we've spent a lot of time talking about, what he's talking about. You've got all these other trades, you've got all these other people on a job site, and they're all relying on the crane, and the intersectionality of like how you manage the risk and the compliance and everything. So when something does go wrong, where do those chips fall? But like, as far as the fraternity of it, I think that's a real thing, so that's, we're a vendor to the industry, and we kind of view ourselves as a pseudo fraternity member because we're so embedded. But like for you guys, did you feel that way? Like, okay, I'm kind of busting into a pretty small circle of people, or maybe you didn't realize it was such a kind of a small group. Everybody knows everybody, that type of deal.
God bless Stephen in his, humbleness. He mentioned over and over and over. Now, we tried to start the company over the course of probably a year and a half, 2 years, but a family member sick over here, family member sick over there. And I wasn't working, I thought I was going to do the retired thing for a while. So, I was like, yeah, we can start it. And, just nothing was an emergency deal, right? Until I was like super sick and not working. But him, bringing him into it, he was so humble about all the things. Like there's probably still a ton of stuff that he's done that I don't know he's done that'll come up in a random conversation and I'll smack him. I'm like, idiot, why didn't you tell me that 3 years ago? You know what I mean? Like, we can do that? And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm like, well, that's a whole nother side of the business that we have not been servicing for 2, 3, 4 years. You know what I mean? So him being super humble and not I got a little off topic there. What were you saying?
Oh, it's just how the industry type is really kind of a fraternity, and it's a small crowd.
So he's telling me, he's like, so the business is really like everybody kind of knows everybody, and I think a lot of industries do that too, on levels. There kind of are no levels in the crane business.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? It's just everybody's kind of right here. I know there's different tiers. People that work on just military stuff, military contracts. But we all kind of know of each other. Well, for him, he was just right next to it his whole life. You know what I mean? But for me, like, as soon as we get into the deal, he knows some hotshot bigwig. I'm like, we know these people? He's like, oh yeah, no big deal. Yeah, here's their number. He's got it in his cell phone. He just sends it over. You know what I mean? And I don't know any of these people. And when I tell you I didn't know anything, oh man.
What was that moment like?
So bad.
What was the moment like when you first realized Oh, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. Oh shit.
What
Well, I have
done?
oh shit moments about every other day. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh shit. So we start the company. He already went out on his own and he bought this little 15-ton boom truck. We still have it to this day. It's fantastic. We bebop around all the time. Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of money, but it's a training tool that we, that allows us to be able to kind of train guys in as operators rather than hiring them in. So we start the company. He's got this crane. I've been out with him a few times, right? And he makes it look so easy, right? He's like just pulling on this full throttle. Wow, super smooth. I get a phone call, right? We're official. It's January, I don't know, 3rd, 5th, whatever, right? And he has this list. Now, mind you, he's been doing this on his own as Watson Crane and Rigging for a year-ish. So he's just sending me all these contacts, and I'm reaching out to him just to let him know who I am. Hey, we're Ginger Cranes now. Nobody gets it. They're like, whatever. You got one crane and the thing lifts like toothpicks, so leave me alone. And I get a phone call back from this guy in the HVAC world. And I'm like, and so I'm just like you with Elk Point doing some research. Boy, I'm internet this and that, Google. And this guy seems pretty cool. He's like, hey, I need to take this sign down at this buddy of mine's shop. He's giving me the sign. And I look up the address. I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, we'll be there tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. He's like, cool. I'll have everybody there. My guys, trailers, blah, blah, blah. I get there with Steven. I can't run the crane, right? I can now. What's up? You want me to run it? Anyway, so we get there and we pull in the parking lot. Steven starts laughing. Now in business, dollars matter if you're in the scale mode like we are, right? Like every dollar matters. We don't misappropriate a single dollar. So this minimum for this 15-ton crane is all of $330, and we need $1,400 of it, right? So we need every penny we can get. We get there, pull in the parking lot, he starts giggling. And I'm like, what are you laughing at? And he's like, just get out. And so we get out, we walk over to the sign, and this guy's like, hey, man, he shakes my hand. Good to meet you. I hadn't met the guy. And he's like, okay, these guys, we're going to pick it up here. We're going to swing it over there. We're going to set it on the trailer. And Steven's like, well, what are we going to do about these power lines? Power lines right above it. Oh. I mean, there's about 8 foot between the sign and the power lines. And I'm like, well, we're not going to touch them. And he's laughing. He's like, yeah, we're not going to touch him. We're not going to get close to him. We can't do this. And I'm like, what? I told the guy, he's got 8 guys here. I mean, we did one job for that. I told him, I was like, listen, buddy, I'm going to take care of you on the next one. I know the sales rigmarole. I'm like, don't worry about today. He's like, well, what about all these guys? I'm like, I'll make it up. I promise. Call us out. I was on the phone with this guy 10 times before he finally lets us come out and do a job for him. We go out and do one job. I do it for half price, you know what I mean? Which is way more than what that crane job was worth. And this was like a year and a half later when he finally was like, okay, come on out. I go out there, we do the job. I'm there with the guys, with the crane. Not that I have a whole lot of value there on site, but whatever. I'm going to, make the guy feel good. And we get the job done, bill him out, half the price, never hear from him again. He goes.
He got his discount.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to get my money.
See ya.
And he got it too, little bastard. So if you're listening, don't call me back.
Gene and myself talk quite a bit about how the information flows in this industry.
Oh, my gosh.
And Chad, we make a joke. We said, if somebody didn't close the toilet lid, everybody in the crane industry knows about that within about an hour. It is crazy. And then we get phone calls saying, hey, did you know that you guys
girls
were insuring that one that was doing that? And so just the information flow is crazy. We talk about how, well, for example, we hate to talk about crane accidents, but if there's a crane accident somewhere, maybe in California, everybody knows about it. within about an hour and a half.
Yep.
It's crazy how the information flows.
Thanks, TikTok.
Yeah.
You videotape the funny stuff, not the axes, not the problems.
What are some bigger challenges that you foresee going forward in this industry? Is it personnel? Is it the economy? Is it what Fed Chairman Powell's going to do with interest rates? What do you see?
When you look at the macro, you can dial in on a bunch of different parts of that. But I mean, personnel. We live in a society that doesn't support skilled trades when skilled trades are needed the most, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's, carpenters. It doesn't, the glorious side of social media is also its downfall, right? It makes doing nothing or something that seems fun lucrative when it really isn't. You know what I mean? Unless you get lucky, right? Unless, and I say lucky all the time, people look at us as lucky, but nobody is talking about that. You know what I mean? About, they say, oh, blue collar workers and blah, blah, blah. I mean, somehow, it's just now starting to become cool to be a blue collar worker. I mean, that's all you see all on social media is, I got me a blue collar man. I mean, girls cooking for their blue collar man and all this other stuff. Like, what? Allie, you need to start cooking for your blue collar man. So, but they're not talking about it. That's a major headwind, right? Is the fact that everything in the world comes down to supply and demand. And when they're talking about inflation, it's so annoying, and I don't want to really get into it, but the media and the politicians and blah, 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 they all talk about, whose fault it is for, inflation. And it's not it's just the whole world shut down. The entire world shut down for 90 days? You can't do that. And so it's a supply and demand issue. And, as soon as as soon as production meets demand, prices fall. It doesn't matter what sector, industry, it doesn't matter. That's the way it is. Especially in America, right? So that is a major headwind as far as personnel, right?
Are you guys have a pretty strong, you speak about social media, you have a pretty strong social media presence. Has that helped you with finding new potential employees or operators?
The good ones.
The good ones?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah. And because they're looking for something different. You know what I mean? And we have some really, really good guys. Now, it also attracts, the dipshits.
Whomever's just happen to be on TikTok or Facebook.
Because they're looking at, oh man, this place is a fun, cool place to work. It is, but it is also work, right?
Yeah.
We don't, we're not a 60-year-old company that has, a legacy of people and equipment that makes everybody's job a little easier. We're still running that company very, very efficiently. You know what I mean? Like, we don't do things that don't make sense. Right. And we have not made the mistakes that end up leaving equipment sitting around that eventually, once you get over the financial hump of being able to have that equipment, that it's just there. I'm not naming any names, but there are several companies in the industry that they screwed up and they made, they were maybe a little too aggressive or flat out just missed it across the board. And now they got some equipment that just sits there and then
underutilized debt.
Yeah. So, but what I'm most concerned about with the industry as a whole is the personnel, and, the world has an accountability problem, which makes compliance, a dead race for number one with personnel, right? So, what happens is when you don't have people that are accountable on both sides of a coin of an accident, then somebody has to pay for somebody else's lack of accountability, right? And we are in that sue-happy society that somebody is overpaying for somebody else's lack of accountability, And I mean, you guys see it all the time. We rolled a truck. What was that? 3 weeks ago or something? Yeah. So, but you know, that accident happened, and it was really an accident. I mean, it was all on us. Guy took the, haul and load, took it too fast, load shifted and rolled the truck over. Nobody got hurt, thank God. But did I call you guys and be like, oh man, this is a $20,000 claim. I need to claim, no, we just wrote the checks and went on down the road, which is the right thing to do. It wasn't somebody else's fault. It's not my insurance company's fault. Yes, I'm paying them to de-risk us, right? But on that level, right? And
we didn't pay him to say this, Ron. Right?
What's that?
I want to get back to something Chad said about the blue collar is back in vogue. I think what's happening, Chad, is the Gen Zs that are coming out right now. Tough job market. They spent 4 to 6 years in college. They got a tremendous amount of student debt. And then getting out to the job they want at 45, 50 grand a year when they want to buy a house, want to have a family. And so the trade sector is actually paying a lot more money.
It's more lucrative.
With no student debt. Now, you may have some trade school debt, but it's a tough deal for the college graduate to get started right now in this inflationary world. I think it's the worst generation, the Z's and the X's, of getting crank started, and you're 25, 30, 35 years old. And the trades, a crane operator, especially working a lot of overtime.
Does well.
I mean, you can make good money, make really good money.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going through this last month, and I mean, truck drivers, made over 100 grand, just driving trucks. Now it's not in the crane business. It's not like backing up to Walmart, waiting for somebody to load your stuff and then, putting your slides on and getting out and shutting the back doors and pulling off and going to, somewhere across the country. It's different, right? But, for us, our entire model is to take these truck drivers that come in, and we hire the truck drivers that, you're going to have to be a really, really good truck driver in the industry in order to work for us, or you're coming into the truck driver because you want to be in a crane, right?
Oh,
and we have a training program that involves that 15-ton, that little fella that we started with, in order to transition. That's our segue with training. We'll get them certified and get them into a crane, right? So, that's something that we do internally. But as far as a whole, these Gen Zers and stuff like that, they've been sold a whole different bill of goods than it was, say, when myself and y'all were coming through high school. They had shop class, and they didn't downplay getting dirty, and getting it done. And that is part of the problem is, and I know that they have shop is now called tech school or something.
Okay.
I know that just happened when I moved out of Wichita Falls. There was this big bond going out about, this deal, and they built this just gigantic facility, it was tens of millions of dollars, which I don't know the return on that. If you give kids the ability to have a router table and table saw and some acrylic, and some resin, you can get Bondo. These kids can build a lot of things with some, just a little bit of chaperoning, right? And just let them go to work. And they don't do that anymore, at least not that I've seen. And the number one thing I look at in business when we're looking at a transaction, whether it be a yearly transaction on how we're going to do business, or just simply like our cranes, I look at like our capture cost, right? What if I'm going to go out and I want to capture $1 million in revenue? What's that going to cost me? How am I going to do that, right? Yeah. Same thing applies to everything across the board, to include these schools. And they go out and they raise a crap load of money on these bonds. The school, now it was South Dakota, but the school I was in didn't even have air conditioning. And for heat, it was a boiler in the basement, radiant heat. So these kids, like they've got most of it wrong, not all of it wrong. The schools and the parenting are not aligned, right? A lot of private schools, that's still intact. And that's the reason why private schooling is so popular now, right? Public schools, I mean, what did I just talk about? Accountability.
They
right?
don't have any.
They can't.
Yeah. They don't have to go like you're talking about.
Because there's that disconnect between parenting and the public sector.
Or being accountable to the gross margin or the net margin.
All they care about, the schools, no disrespect, but all they care about is those butts and seats. And I was in the chemical industry for a while. And we did schools, and that's all they cared about. These boardrooms or these board meetings, that's all they want to talk about. Okay, well, this allow our students to be there until at least 10 a.m. or 10:30, wherever it is. They're like, outside of that, we don't care, because I guess truancy laws. There's some issue there. Whatever. There is a law there, and once they get past a certain time of day, then it doesn't matter. They get their funding, however many dollars per seat, and it's gone down the road, right? So we're turning out some of the most unprepared, and that's what school's about. It is not about somebody's gender. It's not about somebody's getting bullied. It's about preparing these children for the real world, of which, who cares about the gender, right? You see somebody walking down the street that has purple hair and a dress on that appears to be a dude. Well, I don't care, as long as it has nothing to do. I just don't, and I don't think anybody else does either, really. You know what I mean? Unless they're bored and don't have anything to do. But, and I understand they're trying to make these people in school feel like they're part of school. But the big thing is all that stuff gets in the way of getting these kids prepared for life.
How many people are you interviewing out of that age group?
What are you talking about?
Like younger people coming to interview with Ginger Cranes.
We have on staff right now. None of them drive any vehicles, FYI. But we have 17, 18, and 19. He may be 20, 17, 18, and maybe he might be 20 now.
Yeah.
And these guys they did it right. They came in, they interviewed. They're like, listen, I don't know anything, but I want to know everything.
Yeah.
And I will pick up bolts. Just teach me, and I'll stay here forever, which we all know that's not true, but we need bolts picked up, and we need just all the simple things, right?
Yeah.
And these guys, they'll stay there. It doesn't matter. They'll do whatever, whenever.
I think it's a good approach because there's an aging workforce in the heavy iron industry. Operators, oilers, whatever it may be, baby boomers, they're retiring. Hey, I'm not sitting in a cab in North Texas, 110 degrees anymore with no AC. So I've been told that the influx of young people coming in, it's harder to find somebody like that to come in. No bad habits. We teach you the right way to do things. And I think 17 to 19 years old, I think it's awesome because now you can get a CDL at 20. Well, you can get it at 19, but 21, 22, they're CDO ready to rock and roll. They know the culture of Ginger Crane. They want to climb the ranks at Ginger Crane, and they don't bring that baggage.
Yeah. And all it takes is that one experience that they've worked at somewhere where they saw the operator that doesn't get out of the seat, you know what I mean? And he just points and gets on the radio and is like, I'll do this, I'll do that. And they're not ruined, but then it takes that, getting them back on center, it takes so long that it makes them unprofitable, or it makes it where they're a problem on the job site that you don't want to retain them, you can't retain them, so you're immediately looking for their replacement, right? And it's frustrating, to do that. But that is part of the business right now. You know what I mean? And from a social media side, we like to make light of the business. And the whole reason why I kind of got in that, and I don't make enough time for it, and I really need to, because there's so much, like people see these job sites and they're like, oh, and especially like when a crane's involved, they're like, oh, oh man, we got to watch our P's and Q's. The crane's here. We got to watch out. And it's just not that way. You know what I mean? And so there's so much just absolutely funny, dumb stuff that happens on the job site that people need to see. You know what I mean? A, because it's funny and cool, but also you could be a part of that and make 100, 150, 200 grand a year doing it. Not just with us, but in the industry as a whole. And I'm a giant promoter of the industry, right? We work with, I guess you could say our competitors, if you will, are fantastic people. I would take my wife and kids to dinner with 95% of them. They are fantastic. Rob, at North Texas Crane, I mean, good dude. Tatum Crane, good dude. These guys, the new guys at Bulldog, I know that they're upsetting some folks in the business, but by and large, good guys. The guys at Davis, good, fantastic people. You know what I mean? And those guys, you take like Davis, they've done, like every time I get a chance to talk to Wes, I mean, it still baffles me at what they have done in the amount of time that they've done it. I mean, that's a story that needs to get told. I don't know who owns it, runs it. Oh, I know Wes runs it, but I don't know the nuts and bolts behind how that all happened. That doesn't happen again. I would love to say, oh, Ginger's going to do it, but that's whatever they did over there. Woo!
Well, what's funny is the social media that he's talking about with all the funny stuff. So we had a new underwriter look at Ginger this past year, and the feedback we got from the persnickety insurance underwriters, it wasn't, oh, well, we're going to get into the weeds and blah, 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 and all this stuff. The feedback we got was, we've watched the TikTok videos and we're howling.
Well,
she said, we want to try to help this account out. We want to try to help. I was laughing. I was like, that's the antithesis of what you normally hear.
And we've talked about it in prior podcasts. When you talk about the crane rental company and the heavy iron company, their targets, Chad goes to bed every night thinking, I didn't get a lawyer call today. Plaintiff lawyers, we've seen so much uptick in plaintiff lawyer representation on our clients in the last 2 years, and I've been doing this a long time. If there's a fender bender, don't matter who's at fault, we're going to get a letter from a lawyer shortly afterwards. And we've seen some, I think probably where rubber meets the road, I'm getting off on a tangent here, we get 90% representation if there's on claims.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I believe it.
And so, that's also a thing you have to.
I don't even know what you just said. What?
When a claim comes in, how many of the claims that come in from our heavy iron?
You have to seek counsel?
Like, well, no, the claimant has retained counsel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Have they or has counsel retained them?
Yeah, like
right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. 90%.
There should be a law that they have to disclose that.
Well, we had a podcast, couple podcasts ago, where it was documented that the plaintiff lawyer had the tow truck driver on payroll. So when a tow truck driver went out to an accident scene, they would collect data and then feed it back to the plaintiff lawyer. So they had the people's names, addresses, phone numbers. But that's for another podcast. But I guess what I'm saying, owning a crane company, there's a lot of stuff you got to be aware of, and you guys you do a really good job on risk mitigation, loss control training. So that's just part of the thing that you have to think about every day. Sending your guys home back to their families safe.
Yeah. Well, and you, from a risk management standpoint, we go out on these projects, and a lot of people, they don't understand how much is involved just to get a crane on site. If you're not doing something for a mom and pop or, residential or small commercial, something like that, that's all fine and dandy. Hey, I need a crane. You go here. We got to set an RT, whatever. Fly a tree over a house, whatever. simple, easy. There is no upside to having an accident, right? And you don't know when something mechanically is going to go wrong with your equipment outside of a normal daily inspection of the cranes, which we do that on, the cranes and the rigging, right? But anything can happen.
Sure.
There's no upside for us shortchanging any of that along the process, whether it's a $1,000 project or a $100,000 project. And going on to these job sites, we'll point out data centers, for instance. I know this comes back to the owners and the owners' reps and I'm sure their team of legal has been just inundated over the years with dumb lawsuits that they shouldn't be dealing with, right? Which I'm the first to raise my hand that for every dumb policy and procedure that's implemented in corporate environment is because of some idiot, right? Because of some idiot that took advantage of the system, lack of accountability. Hello, I'll say it again. And here's where we're at, right? But if we're going to go work at a data center, it took our guys, we went and put out, I think it was a 350-ton crane. So what was that? So it's sorry, it's my lack of, normal crane guys are going to know, 350 tons, 6 guys. And whatever. I get close. Anyway, we'll say 6, 7 guys, right? That have to drive an hour to the facility, spend 2 hours in orientation to listen to us, to tell them all the things they already know, and then an hour back to the facility. And then you jump in your equipment and drive a back hour back out there to get to work, right? All those inefficiencies, which inefficiencies don't escape the almighty dollar, right?
Right.
There's a cost that gets put on top of everything else.
The permitting
so
and
everything, right? So when you get into the compliance side, now, albeit that's after we've spent an hour or 2, or sometimes 10, depending on the facility, doing a lift plan. And then getting a third-party crane inspector out there, which that's not a big deal, right? But they can't go to work until you're ready to go to work. And if you don't know when you're ready to go to work, they're sitting on the clock waiting on you to go to work. You know what I mean? Clock's ticking. So that makes that more expensive. And it just ends up being more of a cost on the owner, the representative, right? And it all seems to be not all of it for nothing, but certainly financially inefficient.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's no change without the accountability factor in there. There's no changing it. It's just going to be rinse, repeat. And every single time somebody complies to that level of compliance, if you will, that sets the precedence for the next one.
Yeah,
so the next guy that sneaks through the weeds and somehow files a lawsuit after they had these rules and regs in place, and somehow that guy gets paid, they're going to bump it up again. And now we're seeing some of these projects where they're dialing it in as far as 50% of the chart of a crane.
Oh, really?
To do a job. Yes, we did one a month ago. So we had a 240-ton crane out there to do a job that a 100-ton probably could have done. You know what I mean?
Huh.
So and that's 2 guys versus 5. You know what I mean? So I mean, just gigantically increased the cost of that little project because of that.
So you guys actually operate within chart?
It's weird. It's weird, right? Yeah.
I want to jump in just for the last couple minutes because we're coming up on the home stretch. But just for any listeners who don't have this update, we are moving the show over to YouTube, and I want to give Chad a great thank you for a number of great clips that we're going to have come out of this podcast as a result of a lot of the information you've been sharing. I appreciate it. But I know we like to end the show doing a round of shares. So if each of you want to take about 60 to 120 seconds to get in what you brought to the table today. Let's have it.
Well, there was one other thing I wanted to ask Chad. It was
Get it.
Let's do it.
like, what of all the jobs you guys have done over the last 4.5 years, is there one job that just sticks out to you as like super memorable or just really cool? Like, was there one job that you just went, oh man, this is awesome. I'm glad I'm doing this, you know?
So there is. So there was a facility, a new project, new building that was built on Olive Street, right next to American Airlines.
Okay.
And this is December of 2020, right? So we had the 15-ton when we started. And actually, before we started operating the company, we inked the deal, like Stephen and I's company. Ginger Cranes was born in November of 19, right? That's when the corporate docs were all signed and done. But literally from that day, we started looking for a bigger crane. We knew that's not going to do a whole lot. It's not going to create a lot of revenue, which is what we needed. So we started searching for cranes, got our first, I was like, 100 ton. Oh we're going to be able to do so much business. So, which I was unaware of what sizes of cranes were. It's crazy. But by then to December of 2020, we had somehow bought a 240 ton crane.
Yeah.
Which we were flying this tree, an olive tree, up to this new facility for a customer that I would have thought never would have dealt with us, right? But they just loved the fact that we were gingers. And I told Stephen when we started the company, I was like, we tried. Lord love him. Let me get off task here, off copy. But he gave me like a list of 30 names to try to, put the company on. I told him, I was like, let's not do like somebody's last name, Crane and Riggin. That's everybody does that. Let's do something different, something marketable, something somebody's going to think about. And I threw that up, and he's like, nobody will take us serious. And I'm like, that's even better. You know what I mean? They'll still remember it. Ginger Crane's run by a couple of dumb redheads, right? And I was like, you could be the skinny one. I'll be the fat one. It's going to work great. So, and it worked out. He's the skinny one. I'm still the fat one. So anyway, all of that to finally be rewarded for being a ginger. These people love the fact that we were just good people in the crane business. When we started talking to them, now we had started the sales process, the buying process of this crane. We hadn't bought it yet. We didn't own it yet. It was not in our possession, but I had sold the project, and I'd already reached out to a couple of other companies like, I sold this thing and I don't have a crane. Can you help us? And they're like, yeah, we'll help you, whatever, which is another thing that's fantastic about the crane business. But so we get this crane and we do that. Like this thing's, man, when that thing was all scoped out and had the jib on it and all the counterweight, we had to borrow. Mid-City Erectors, shout out those guys. So Stephen used to work for those guys, and they're good buddies, and they're right there down the road from us.
Yep.
And
we know
Scott Brooks, John, those guys are fantastic, and they do work for us when it's too big and we can't do it. You know what I mean? Yep. So they loaned us a truck to drive the last load of counterweight. We didn't have the crane when I sold the job. We didn't have the counterweight trucks. You know what I mean? And we just kind of leaned into it and did it. And I actually, Tuesday of last week, we were going through a file and I found that and I looked at the invoice. And I remember the guys when we were done, they were like, you did this like half of what anybody else would have done. I was thinking, and it was the biggest project we've ever done, right? I was like, oh my God, this is huge. And these guys are like, are you sure that's the price? And I'm like, well, yeah, just this one. We're taking care of you guys. So that's the project that that's the most memorable one.
Yeah.
We literally, you see all this stuff around social media. Nobody knows what they're doing, which if you're listening to that, that's not true. A lot of us know what we're doing. Those people are just trying to that's clickbait. Anyway, that project, we literally leaned on some industry folks to get it done. In fact, we weren't even a Coverica customer at the time, which getting a COI for that project was a beating.
Yeah.
It was an Archer Western project. And what they needed, we went back. Oh, so
seen their contracts, and all the names that you mentioned in this podcast, Chad, they're all great companies. Just to preface that, we know them all. Back to kind of ending this thing, I just want to give a shout out to the U.S. and how they performed in the Olympics.
Ha! Yes.
Going over to Paris in foreign soil set a record of 126 medals.
Okay.
I thought that was awesome.
Really?
They had 40 goals. China had 91 total medals. France, the home country, had 64. But you got to love Simone Biles. What an athlete. We got the fastest guy in the world right now, Noah Lyles.
Oh, yeah.
Watching Stephon Curry bury threes on the basketball court.
Can you imagine if Gene and I were out there? The amount of lipids and oils that would be all over that.
I just thought it was a fun Olympics. They had 15 million visitors to the city of Paris. They sold 10 million tickets. And I'm thinking, coming off Tokyo and the COVID delayed 21, it was 21 instead of 20. I think I didn't like the opening ceremony. I'll go ahead and say that. But everything else, I loved watching U.S. participate in the Olympics. I thought it was great.
Yeah. That's very good. Well, I guess I could give an update on the truck. Not a lot has happened this summer. It's been too dang hot, and we've been too busy with baseball.
Wait a minute. What truck?
I am swapping an LS into a square body Blazer, a 1985 Blazer.
Nice.
And so I've got the motor in, and I actually just over the weekend I finished up the brake system. So next up is
Willwood.
Yeah, the master cylinders. Willwood
Shout out.
Had to hold my nose to buy that master cylinder anyway. But that's all done. Next up is steering and hydraulics, electrical, and then I should be good. Oh, fuel. I gotta run the fuel. So
Well, get the hydraulics from a crane vendor. Totally not going to break, I swear. That's what they tell me. Oh, no, it's good. You're good. Not.
Yeah, like Pertec or...
Yeah, dude, all of them. It doesn't matter.
So what are you doing outside of the crane business?
Kids.
Yeah,
dude,
sure.
Kids. If you are somehow a father, mother, even a kid listening to this podcast, man, I don't know what I did before kids. Man, they make everything better and worse. You know what I mean? If I was to tell you what happened in the last 24 hours, if they had a camera that could show the damage, deal with yesterday's work, right? We go through work, get through the day. You guys don't get a phone call from me. All is good, right? Hey, so you got to go pick him up his indicator. So I'm like, oh, all right. And I'm not done. I'd like to get to a stopping point no matter what I'm doing in the day. So I'm just like, boom, I'm done going to Decatur, right? I get there. It's like 6:59. Got to be there at 7 to pick the kid up. I get in there and everybody's running around and I'm like, what? And one of the kids' moms is like, oh, got the time wrong. I told your wife 7 and it's 8. Not a big deal, whatever, right? So I sit in this gym. It's so loud. I can't take a call. I can't make a call. So I just get on social media, right? And I like and share. Here I go. Get home. Where's the cat? Get home. It's 9:00 by the time we get home, right? It's enough time to throw some food down the gullet, shower, bed. 5 a.m. is coming. So can't find the cat. We do that for an hour. just about to close my eyes. Wife wakes me up. Baby's not, we got a 4-year-old. He's, he got RSV when he was 2, and he's just had a fit every time he gets sick. Go to the ER, in the ER, get back at like 2 a.m, get to bed, wake up at, 5:30, go to get the kids out of bed. My wife, we have one of those family beds. Have you guys ever seen one of those?
No.
So they're like 300 foot wide, put your whole family. Anyway, I don't even know. It's big, right? But Lord love her to let the littles have the ability to get in the bed. She scoots the mattress over. The mattress is supposed to hang over all sides to protect a man's shins from it. So 5:45 in the morning, I'm waking the kids up, get them ready to go, get their day started. House is dark. I run directly into what every man knows would be the hitch on an 85, Blazer. I mean, I hit it bleeding, whole 9 yards, screaming. Everybody's awake now. No problem, right? Get everybody almost out of the house. I forget something in the house. I walk in the house. And when I walk in, it's a giant, like if you're walking into a retail store, like woof, all this wind comes out. And I'm like, oh, somebody's got a door or a window open. What's that all about? And I'm a super dad. So I'm like, that's expensive. All that air conditioning just went out. So that cold breeze you guys felt this morning, that was me opening the house with everybody having, windows and doors open. And I smell this just nasty smell. And I'm like, what is that? So oh my gosh, I get back there to where she's at, my wife. She is like the strongest person in America. This dog had violently, I mean, it crapped everywhere in this laundry room.
Oh my God.
I'm talking on the walls, how'd that happen? Is
your shin still bleeding?
Yes. Yeah, I showed Steven this morning. He's like, oh man. He's like, yeah, that's what I'm dealing with.
And how many hours of sleep?
I don't know.
But did you find the cat?
Here's the deal. If it wasn't that, it'd be something else. A crane. My phone rings at 5 a.m. if I get to sleep in, right? It's, so-and-so's late, or, the customer this, or this is broke every day. Well, but today it just happened to be that bed.
Did you find the cat?
So on my way here, wife calls. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. The kid we went to the ER with is fine. I can hear him chirping in the background. Daddy, everything's good, right? Hey, I went to get the baby. This was the 4-year-old that went to ER last night. Went to get the baby. The wife got the baby up from his nap. He's 2. And she's like, I was getting him up, and I just bang, 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 just all this noise in his closet. Yeah, there's the cat.
Perfect.
Oh, my.
So a lot of, So for everybody out there that has children, or if you are a child, if you're a child, be better to your parents. If you're a parent, find the joy in all of that I just said, because I did laugh about it after I got the kids dropped off at school.
We'll miss it.
So thankful and grateful for it. I mean,
if I have a very complicated day, I'm going to call Chad. All of a sudden, it's no big deal at all.
It's crazy. I don't know what I did. I don't know what got me out of bed. We have 4 kids now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to be Gene over here.
I didn't
get 3 at a time, but I got 2. You know what I'm saying?
Buddies of mine were like, I don't know how you did it with triplets. I'm dying with 1. You're right. Find the joy in it. Just lean in, go. I love it.
For everybody out there listening, get to work. Get something done. You know what I mean? Move the needle in whatever capacity that is. So frustrating. These people, just the will to work. And when I say work, I'm not talking about, it's not about like physical labor necessarily, but just do something.
Engage.
We were scatter shooting the other day, and I said, Gene, our next guest should be Chad. And Gene goes, wow, yeah.
Not live. Let's not put him on live.
I said he's a personality, and I think we need that to lighten up a little bit. So hey, thanks for being here.
I'm
Chad.
glad
I
to be
appreciate
here.
that.
Yeah, I
we
really
appreciate it, Chad,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much.
It's been
Shout
a
out
good
to Sir Isaac for doing the editing on,
That's right.
on sound.
He could be of more taught. What is that? That might be Australian.
I'll run it. I'll ask Google AI. See what they say later.
Oh boy, he's smart.
Real quick before we wrap up, go ahead and tell us where we can find Ginger Cranes. You have some social media.
So Ginger Cranes, I think it's just at Ginger Cranes, right? On all the things. We do more on TikTok than any of the other ones. Just I don't know. We got started. I don't know how to merge all that, Sir Isaac. So maybe you could, Sir, help me with that.
We'll get it in the show notes below, and we'll do a discovery call after this.
But we do more on TikTok than anything else, and then I try to share it on Facebook and on Instagram. But some of that stuff, I get so busy, I just don't get a chance to update it and look at it and all this stuff. So, but I'm glad to be here. I'm proud to be part of this company. I'm proud to be part of the Coverica family. So you guys do a really good job.
We're happy to have our first guest from Elk Point, South Dakota.
Dude,
So
there we go.
appreciate that.
not the last.
Well, thank you so much for listening. Be sure you subscribe and leave a 5-star review for the show. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us following the link in the show notes below, and also follow Ginger Cranes. New episodes launch each month, and until then, we'll see you then.